Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Lina Knits podcast. I'm Lina and I'm coming to you from my home in Helsinki, Finland. And this is my podcast about knitting and yarn. Today is April the 4th, a Wednesday, not a date that I typically podcast. I usually do it on a Thursday and then do all the editing bits on a Friday. But since it's been almost 2 weeks since I came home from Edinburgh Yarn Festival and my trip to Scotland, I thought now I really want to talk to you about my experience. After after the festival, I spent another 5 days exploring Scotland. I came home on the Thursday after the festival, or Thursday, Friday night. And for the weekend, I was just really exhausted by all the wonderful things that had happened to me, and I just spent it lying down and sleeping a lot. And then I've been busy with work and Easter, which came as a surprise for me this year. I had been so focused on my Scotland trip that I sort of didn't realize that Easter would be right after it. But now I'm here and I'm excited to be here. What I'm wearing is probably the thing you will notice by now. This is the Winter Soul sweater by Jennifer Steingas that I knit together with Maria of the Tuskenknits podcast and Tuskenknits yarn for our trip to Edinburgh. And actually I did wear this to the marketplace as well. I thought I wouldn't do that. I thought it would be too hot based on last year, but either my memory was completely wrong or they had done something with the temperature inside and it wasn't too hot. I mean, it was warm, but it wasn't too hot to wear a sweater. And I ended up going to the marketplace on 3 days, on all the days that it was open, and I wore this there on Thursday and Saturday. So it got plenty of wear already there, and then I wore it pretty much every day for the rest of my trip. So this has been used, and now that every time I wear it afterwards, I'm sure I will be reminded of that wonderful trip that I was lucky enough to do. But yes, I knit the Rerum Naturas Gilead, or I knit this out of the Rerum Naturas Gilead, the worsted weight wool. And I used Seal for my main color, Poivre for the brown color, and Poivre Blanc for the pale color. And I really love this. Let me see if I can stand up. So it's, my hip bones are here, so it's a little cropped. I like the positive ease that I have around the body, and in the yoke, the sleeves are maybe a bit too wide for my liking. I would have liked them to be a lot more narrow, well, not a lot, but a little more narrower. I have a long sleeve shirt right now under here and they're still a bit baggy, but they don't look bad. It's just personal preference would have been to have them be a slightly more narrower. But to do that, I would have had to sort of do a bit of math since it was all divided from the yoke, and I wouldn't have wanted more stitches on the body, so I would have just needed to do some decreases or less increases on the yoke. Yeah, really happy with this. I really enjoyed knitting the sweater. The pattern was well written and I just love this yarn. Alright, so this is going to be really EYF focused. I did upload a vlog of the footage that I filmed while I was in Scotland, and I've uploaded that to YouTube already. Most of you have probably seen it, but if you haven't, I'll link it below or somewhere here, and you can go and have a look at that. It's really, there aren't that many talking segments on it. I did do a few more than what are on it, but it was so windy in Edinburgh that that's pretty much all you hear, like every 20th word and just wind. So I left those out. But yes, in retrospect, I could have done a lot more talking to explain what I was doing. But hopefully you enjoy the footage from the festival and then the scenery in the Highlands afterwards. But yes, so arrived to Scotland on a Wednesday before the festival began. Met up with Maria. It was so good to finally see her again. We've been talking online, but it's not the same thing as talking face to face. So that was just wonderful. And then we met Lina of the Frostbites podcast and had a lovely dinner that evening. Maria was feeling a bit sick, so we cut it short, and everyone was quite tired after all the traveling we'd done. So we decided to head to bed early so that we'd be up and about the next day heading to the festival. But Maria unfortunately woke up feeling really sick. So I ended up going to the festival with Minna. And yeah, walking in there, it was quite overwhelming. Like, I knew what to expect based on the previous year, but still I was pretty overwhelmed, and for a while I just really didn't know what to do. So didn't do too much damage. I think on the first day I only, let's see, yeah, on the first day I just really had a good look around at the different booths and what they had on offer, and really weighed my options. But the one thing that I had decided, like before the marketplace, that I wanted to check out and possibly purchase was the Blacker Yarns Jacob. And I did it. I got a total of 6 skeins of the Jacob in the 4-ply. I got 3 of the paler colors, and then I got each of the marled versions of it. And I'm thinking these will make a really lovely sort of natural gradient or fade. And I'm thinking either a cardigan or a pullover, where the pale ones will be in the top part, and then the hem will be done in these darker shades. I just really need to take my time in picking out the right pattern. I'm thinking something really simple, like Flax by Tuskenknits, or if I want to do a cardigan, the featherweight cardigan. But I haven't made up my mind yet which style I want first, like a cardigan or a pullover. But yes, definitely we'll do this one. So the Jacob yarn is the one that Blacker sent a sample to me, and I really liked the fabric that this yarn created. And the Jacob breed is the breed of sheep that has 2 tones or 2 shades of wool, a dark and a light wool, in one fleece. So this is a mixture. The pale ones, of course, are just the natural white dyed up, and these are then the natural white and the darker fleece or wool spun in different proportions. So that was my first purchase. The Placker Yarns booth was again in the same general area as the Placker and Knit British podcast lounge, which I attended all the days that I was in the marketplace, so all 3 days. The Meet the Podcaster event happened from, if I remember right, 12 to 2. All of the days. I did not spend all of those 2 hours on any of the days there, but I did spend a good amount of that time there, and also sometimes during other hours of the day as well. And I really enjoyed meeting some of my viewers. Quite a number of you came up to say hi, and I was just thrilled to meet you. Thank you for coming to say hi. And I also really enjoyed meeting other podcasters whose podcasts I watched. Some also new to me podcasters whose podcasts I need to check out once I have the time. And some of them I had already met the previous year. So it was really nice catching up with them. I'm not going to try to name each and every one of you, because I'm sure I will forget someone and I don't mean to. But it was really nice to talk to Helen of the Curious Handmade podcast again, and it was really lovely to meet Isabel of the Fluffy Fibers podcast, whose podcast I watched for a long time, and we've also been in contact outside of the podcasts every now and then. So it was really such a pleasure to meet her in real life. Right, then after the podcast lounge, some lunch, I went and had browsed through the marketplace. Again, I got through half of it before the podcast lounge, so the other half was left. One of the last places that I went to was the booth, or it was more than a booth, it was a yarn store. Isolda's booth is what I mean. So she had everything, books, yarn, samples, all of it was there. And I've been admiring, I think I've said it on the podcast so many times that I want to knit a pair of colorwork mitts. Not mitts, mittens, I mean. And Isolda came out with a pattern called Millet, M-I-L-L-E-T, sometime last winter, and I really love that pattern. And it was part of the Knitworthy collection for last winter, so I have it in my library as well. I've been hearing a lot of good things about Fennel by Rauma. This is a difficult word for me, since Rauma is a city here in Finland. But this is not it, so I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Wait, what kind of an R am I meant to say? Rauma. Anyway, the Fennel yarn. I've been hearing a lot of good things about it, and Isolda had probably all the colors that they put out. Dozens and dozens of colors to choose from. So I picked 3 for the mitten pattern, and this is my combination. Really soft, muted colors, but hopefully with enough contrast in them to make the pattern. When will I knit it? I don't know. But now I have a pattern and a yarn for the colorwork mittens, so maybe by next winter, during next winter, I will finally have them. So that's a garment and a pair of mittens. And oh, I did get something else on the first day as well, which is not knitting related, but a stitching related. I got an embroidery kit. Now, you know, if you've been watching for a while, that I occasionally do cross stitch. I don't talk about it much here, but I have mentioned and shown my projects every now and then. But this is for more like a freehand embroidery. So what this kit has is a printed canvas or a piece of fabric. This is a topographical image of Edinburgh, and the star there is where the Corn Exchange is located. And the idea is that with these different threads, I can embroider the outlines, fill in the landscape, whatever I please. And there's a hoop, and there are beads to add some bling. There's a needle and a needle threader, which I've never used, so I'm curious to see how that works. And there's even backing fabric, so once I've finished embroidering it, I can use the hoop as a sort of frame and just add backing fabric and some instructions on how to do it. Then on the next day, I had spent the evening, Thursday evening, thinking about what I wanted to get, because I knew that I wanted to get something more, but I didn't know what. One of the things that I had again sort of pre-decided on getting was some mohair for that sweater where you hold mohair and fingering yarn together. So I got, there were a few sellers who had lovely hand-dyed mohair skeins, but the problem was that I needed 3 skeins, and most that I liked wanted only had 2 available on Friday afternoon. So I ended up getting 3 skeins from Skein Queen. I found this really gorgeous sort of pale mauve, purple, pinkish color. This is, I think the base is called Floof. It doesn't have a colorway name, or then the Floof is the colorway name and it doesn't really have a base name. Anyway, I got 3 skeins of that, and I've actually started something with that. So we're jumping into webs right now. I actually don't know where the 3rd skein of it is, but this is what I have knit. I started this on Easter weekend. I'm pairing the Floof with a hand-dyed gray yarn. The gray yarn is by Eden Cottage Yarns. Eden Cottage Yarns was at the marketplace and they had a wonderful tempting booth, but this isn't from there. This has been purchased previously online. It's the Hayton 4-ply in the steel colorway. This is 80% merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon, 350 meters, 380 yards per 100 gram. And the Floof is, I didn't say that, 72% kit mohair and 28% silk. It's a lace weight, so 50 grams has 420 meters. And what is this that I'm knitting? This is, I love the texture of this fabric, and I love the color, the subtle tones of mauve and pink on this one, and the halo. It's so soft. So the pattern that I'm knitting is from Lina issue 4, and it's the Magnolia sweater by Camilla Val. It's this one. Stockinette and then some lace at the cuffs and hem. And I'm knitting this. My main needle is a 3.5 millimeter. That's a US 5 or 4, use 4 carbons. And yes, really loving it. It's already spring, but I'm still loving all the mohair. Oh, I did have a finished object as well. The mohair brought that to my mind. I will show that after I've finished with the EYF purchases. And then I knew that I'm really into knitting garments. So even though I already had yarn for 2 garments, well, I knew I had the fingering weight to match the mohair at home. So two garments. I still wanted to get something more. I really like the Mon Manet sweater by Jonna Hietala. And so I was on the lookout for iron weight yarn for it. And what I ended up getting is Dovestone by Bara New in the undyed natural colorway. I think this is shade 3. I think they had 5 different shades of the undyed Dovestone. So this is the third shade 3. And this is actually a yarn that I had fondled and thought about purchasing last year as well. These are the DK. I really like the shades, the natural shades of this and the feel of the yarn. So once I saw this, I kind of knew that this is what I wanted to get for my Mon Manet or whatever else I decide to do with it. But I have a sweater quantity, 5 skeins of it. The Dovestone is a blend of 50% Bluefest Leicester and 25 Wensleydale long wool and 25 Masham. And I think the Masham creates a lovely, slightly marled look to the yarn. So I have a nice big bunch of it to knit into a sweater. And then I had 2 more non-yarn purchases, and I really can't remember what day it was that I purchased these, but I got the newest interpretations collection by Veera Välimäki and Jouhi Locatelli. I got this from the Pom Pom stand. Several stands had it, but I wanted to go to the source. And some of the Pom Pom stall had samples from this book. So I had a look through those, and I kind of know what I'm going to be making. Well, you know, more plans, less time. That's always the case. Like I always have more plans than I have time for. But I really like the look of this sweater, both in the book and in the live version. And then some. And the Wall Collection booth had this sample in their booth, the Chasing Light shawl. It's a really interesting construction. If I feel like knitting shawls, that's definitely something I could see myself going for. And I found that this anemone top was also really interesting, seen live as well. And then I did get 1 project bag. I've been kind of admiring everyone's field bags, but then I just wanted to get something a bit different. Plus I love this shade of pink. So this is from the Kettle Yarn Company's booth. I had to laugh a little when I realized that last year I bought a bunny, my cute bunny bag from the Kettle Yarn Company's booth, and this year I got this one. But this was and I can't remember how it was, but something about France and Portugal and fair trade was mentioned in the description, so I really like that, in addition to how the bag looks. And there were two sizes, and this was the larger one. I think this is a good for shawls. Right now it's filled with all kinds of trinkets that I got, business cards and pens and that sort of thing, and also some of the buttons that I got. So these are wooden buttons with nice vintage prints. So there's 2 sets of 5. The darker ones, and then these really lovely pale ones. These almost look like wallpaper or or Liberty prints. I'm really sorry about that. So I guess I do need to be knitting some cardigans sometime in the future with all my lovely buttons. And I also started my enamel pen collection pretty much by accident. Well, I knew I wanted to get something with the EYF logo this year. Last year I got a tote bag, or did I get a project bag, or both? Anyway, so I went with the ram head enamel pen. And then Helen Stewart gave me this pen for the Shawl Society, and I adore it. She gave it to me in honor of my 1-year business anniversary, which happened during EYF. And then from my travels in the Highlands, I got this Highland cow pen because I just think they are the cutest things. So yes, that's everything I got from the festival, but that's not everything I brought home, since Maria also brought some yarn for me. I had purchased this one from her before the festival from one of her updates. This is the Kaluna colorway. I love Kaluna. I love Scotland. We have Kaluna here as well. Kaluna is the name for heather, or the Latin name for heather. And this is the yarn that came with, or there was a pattern that came with this yarn for a nice pair of Kaluna socks, and I think this will indeed turn into those socks whenever I feel like starting a new pair of socks. And she also, as a surprise, brought me one of her other colorways. This is Ruby's Song in the fur base, which is a 100% superwash merino single base. This is definitely going to be a shawl one day on its own, or paired with some other color. I'm thinking gray. I like gray. I like adding things with gray. Anyway, so that's the yarn and the things that I bought. I didn't have any classes booked. I was intending to go to the knit night on Thursday, but because Maria was so sick, we skipped that. I could have, of course, gone on my own, but she'd been on her own the whole day already. So I stayed with her in our room, and we had dinner at a pub nearby, and it was fun. And I did some knitting in the evening, I think. So what did I knit during my trip? Well, I did take those socks with me, but I didn't do a stitch on them. Instead, I took one of my new designs with me, or something that I'm designing at the moment with me, and knit the sample. This is what it looks like at the moment. So it's a pair of mitts. I'm gonna share this with you now, but it's not ready. I haven't even knit the second mitt yet, let alone written the pattern or any of that. But this is what I did. This is how much knitting I did. I did pretty much the whole thing there. So I did some knitting, not as or more knitting than I usually do while I'm traveling, but still not as much as I was hoping. I was hoping to have finished this and made some progress on the scrappy socks, but that didn't happen. I was just doing so much that I was really tired by the time it was evening and just wanted to go to bed. I read maybe a couple of pages from the second Harry Potter book, which I took with me because my son brought it to me from the library and said, "Mom, you need to read this so that you know if I can read the second book." He's just read the first book, loved it, and cannot wait to read the second one. But he's 9, so I want to be sure that the book is appropriate for him. So I've read the books before, I watched the movies several times, but I can't remember exactly what was in the books. So I want to reread it. Plus I want to reread Harry Potter anyway, so a good excuse. So after the festival, Maria and I, we rented a car and just drove around Scotland on the left side of the road, which is something neither of us had done before. We based ourselves in Fort William and did lovely day trips to the surrounding highlands and the Isle of Skye. And I really enjoyed those days as well. I really cannot say which one was better, the festival and meeting all the people there in Edinburgh, or the peace and quiet of the highlands. I think it was a good combination of having both of them in one trip. Plus I really enjoyed Maria's company. Maria did a podcast episode where she went into detail on what we saw and did. So if you're interested in that, you can go check her podcast out. I'll link it down below. But yes, spring had been pretty cold in Edinburgh up to that point. It even snowed on the Sunday that we left. And we drove through a snowstorm, which was not what I was expecting when I went to Edinburgh in March. But in the north around Fort William, there was snow on the mountain tops, but other than that, no. But it wasn't green yet, so it was a lot of shades of brown, which was also very pretty. But I think I'd really like to go back there during the summer months or the more greener spring months. Right. And the last thing, I think it's the last thing that I wanted to share with you is my other FO. So the first FO is what I'm wearing, but the second FO is the mohair gorgeousness. That is the Solace shawl. So this is a pattern by Woolenberry. And I did this using Lina Knits silk hair and then 2 different fingering weight yarns. So the purple one is polka dots, or fiddle knits polka. I mean polka dots, fiddle knits polka in amethyst, and the gray one is Old Maiden on a tray. And as usually happens with me and shawls, I ran out of yarn. Now this time I think it is because I had previously knit the purple, or started to knit another shawl with the purple yarn. Decided to frog it, but since it was instead of stripes, I did not actually reclaim all of the yarn, and I just threw the beginning of that shawl away. So I didn't have a full skein. I only would have knitted it for about, I think, 7 more rows or something. So it's possible it's just because of that, or otherwise I was just knitting a looser gauge than I normally do. But anyway, I think it looks quite nice. I did 2 rows in the bind off, then in the gray colorway. So instead of a striped section and a slightly wider gray section at the bottom, it just ends with the purple and a bind off in the other color. I really love knitting this. This is the ultimate, like, mindless knitting. Plus I just love the combination of mohair and wool. I could use this as a pillow. So that's that. That's briefly and in a very scattered way what happened to me at Edinburgh Yarn Festival. So once more, I really want to thank everyone who came and said hi. It was such a pleasure and privilege to meet you. And I've had so many conversations with wonderful knitters that I think I'll be thinking about this event until next year, which is when I hope to be back at Edinburgh. That's like the goal. I want to go there again. I'd really love it to be a yearly thing, just because I love the festival and I love Edinburgh and I love Scotland. So we'll see. I'm gonna try to make it happen. If not, I'll just live vicariously through everyone else and through my memories. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet but would like to be kept up to date on when a new episode or a vlog is released, you can hit the subscribe button. You can find me on Instagram as Lina Knits, and you can find my website at linaknits.com. And you can find my patterns on Ravelry in the Lina Knits store or under my name, Pauliina Karlu. So thank you and happy knitting, and see you soon. Bye!